Well, I always enjoy catching up with Susie Elkins to talk about all things broadcasting and content creation and distribution. Susie's the Director of Broadcasting for Michigan State University and General Manager of WKAR Public Media. Susie, great to have you back on MSU Today.
Thanks for having me, Russ.
So October 5th is PBS's 50th birthday. How are you celebrating at WKAR?
Well, we've been thinking a lot about it, and I've been taking some time to kind of reflect not only on PBS's history, but on our own history here at WKAR. And so it's been fun for us. We've been thinking about it through the lens of content and service and all of these things. So I appreciate this opportunity to talk with you about it and reflect on it.
And of course, WKAR has been around a lot longer than PBS, but can you talk a little bit about how your missions, are combined and are very similar, and sort of how they're evolving 50 years later?
Yes, of course. I'd love to. I think one thing that struck me as I have been reflecting on our history, actually, is the role that radio has played in the advent of public media. And I think MSU saw the potential of broadcasting early on. They saw it as a force to improve the lives of Michiganders. And I don't know if a lot of people know this, but they began an experimental radio broadcasting service in 1917. And there were a few educational radio stations, mostly based in universities, operating at low power. But really, it was educational media advocates thinking about wanting to set aside those radio channels for educational use. And so it really wasn't even until 1952 that broadcast television spectrum was set aside for educational purposes. And once again, Michigan State University was very innovative. And in 1954, we launched one of the first educational television stations in the United States. So we do have a really strong, long history, and it becomes intertwined with PBS's a little bit later. But we started creating wonderful content here on campus to fill that programming schedule. So you can imagine, before PBS, we had a big programming schedule to fill. And so, I think our history is unique and exciting. And I think the idea began to take root across the country following, that it all goes back to the land grant colleges and Michigan State's mission. And MSU has been a pioneer in this area for a long time. So,
and some may think, Susie, when we talk about the mission, well, they put programming out for people, but it's much more than that, isn't it? And people get your content in so many other ways now. Can you talk about how that's evolving?
Yeah, I think, the last thing I want to say on the history side, and then I'll move into that, is once people saw the benefit of those educational stations that were cropping up, they really saw a need to take a look at where mass media was heading. And a lot of the early legislation was making it very commercialized and trying to bring audiences to advertisers. And that's when, PBS, it really became clear that we needed to solidify this educational programming and make a space and make sure that every citizen in the country had access to free educational programming over the air. And so, I think that's really what started the mission for PBS, and we have stayed true to those roots. But today's challenges mean that we need to meet those audiences when and where they want us. And so it isn't just necessarily over the broadcast airwaves. It's making sure that we're providing service, through 24/7 streaming online and on the various devices that people use these days in order to find content. And so a particular challenge for us, and I think it's a huge opportunity, but one thing that we are always wanting to think about is how to do that and still serve those local communities, because we are the only locally owned and locally accountable media organizations left in the country. And so, we're not negotiating for one network. We're negotiating for 360 public broadcasting stations in each individual community. So that makes it a particular challenge in today's environment. But I think it's what also makes us special and really unique and important in today's world.
And you're doing something right, because surveys show that PBS and NPR and public broadcasting as one of the most trusted institutions in the country, isn't it?
Oh yeah, and we've maintained that now for, over 15 years, and it's something we're really proud of. And I think it's because we are beholden to these local audiences, and WKAR is held accountable by folks here listening in our community, and so they call us, and I talk to them, and I hear what they're thinking, and we make adjustments, and that just doesn't happen in the media industry anywhere else in the world. And so yeah, I think that's what makes us special.
And one of the ways, Susie, that PBS and WKAR are honoring the 50th anniversary of PBS is American Portrait. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I think it's really a unique project that is, it combines the digital aspect with the broadcast aspect, and I think it's perfectly poignant to celebrate the 50th anniversary with a project like this, where we're reaching out to community members and asking them to share their stories. So we are providing prompts to get people, one sentence, did you ever imagine that, ... and then asking folks to answer, that prompt with whatever comes to mind for them. And I think the beauty of it is that we're hearing from every perspective, every voice that you can think of that makes up these wonderful United States. We're inviting them to tell their story, and we've had lots of participation in our local community, and there's been lots of participation at stations across the country, and we're pulling together digital stories to share through social media and online and on air, and then just most recently, we created an actual half-hour documentary under the American Portrait banner to highlight an essential worker, a nurse who's working to care for patients in this during the pandemic. And so we've really tried to take advantage of American Portrait to make sure that we're including as many voices and perspectives as possible. So I think it's kind of the perfect fit to celebrate 50 years of doing that towards our mission.
And Susie, you're on the PBS board. What are some of you and your fellow board members, what are the issues you're grappling with as we move forward?
Well, I think we really want to always be thinking about our mission, and it's so easy to there's so much change happening, so we're always talking about change and how we need to adjust and make sure that we're continuing to be relevant for audiences and bring them what they need, but always doing that with that core mission in mind, meaning that we serve all Americans, we serve everyone in every unique community. And so it's sort of an interesting juxtaposition of as a broadcaster, we're one to many and it's mass communication. However, our mission states that we want to serve individual voices and really personalize and localize the experience. And it's okay if we have less ratings, if we're telling a story that fewer people are tuning into. Those who are tuning in are being impacted positively and cared for and served in a unique and interesting way. So, on the board, we're always thinking about how to balance those things. And as I mentioned, we're trying to innovate and take advantage of new technologies while always negotiating and keeping the local station at the forefront. And that can be challenging, in all honesty, but it's worth it. It's worth every, drop of sweat and every tear to try to figure out how to do it. And I think we've been really successful. I mean, PBS has a long history of innovating. We created closed captioning. We had the first satellite uplink system. We had the first broadcast facility in digital, and so we just continue to innovate and find new ways to serve audiences. And so we talk a lot about that on the board and maintaining that local connection. We also, as of late, have really been talking about our role in dealing, helping the country grapple with legacies of systemic racism and inequality in our country. And we've been committed to leveraging the unique strengths we have as a public media system to manage and encourage conversation around difficult topics. And part of our mission at WKAR is to affect positive change. So we don't shy away from difficult issues and difficult topics. We have a strong catalog. PBS has a long history, a huge catalog of of content, including Eyes on the Prize and Freedom Riders and African Americans, Many Rivers to Cross. This is all content that, we have in our catalog that we have been using to spark conversation and try to help people understand, as individuals struggle, let's try on some different perspectives and try to have some understanding about what people are going through and see if we can make some positive change. So those are some big things that we've been talking about at the board level that I think are important for stations. Individual stations are also grappling with this and trying to leverage their content and their ability to hold conversations and make change in their local communities. And we're just trying to support the stations in that effort as much as possible.
I'm talking with WKAR leader Susie Elkins on MSU Today. And Susie, you and your team recently issued just a phenomenal stakeholder report showing all the ways you positively impact the community. And one that sticks out is has anything been more successful than the PBS Kids Initiative, of which WKAR is one of the real trailblazers nationally?
Yeah, we were really excited to put out the stakeholder report because one thing we talk about all the time at the station is how grateful we are to our donors and our members and our listeners and viewers. And, we have so much support and from the university and, I'm thinking of MSU, FCU and their role in helping us expand education, and Consumers Energy has been with us since the beginning with Quizbusters and now Curious Crew. And so we just really wanted to put together a report to show folks what their contributions have meant to our community. And so it was a big project, but one that we felt was important. And we've been excited to share that with our stakeholders and others who sometimes don't know everything that we're doing in terms of not just putting out programming, but providing engagement events and community screenings and working with the university to make sure that the general public understands the role of research and how it creates positive change in communities. And so we just wanted to be able to tell our story, which was a little uncomfortable for us. We're used to helping others tell their stories. And so, we struggled a little bit with feeling like, we're spending a lot of time talking about ourselves, but we aren't really, because this WKAR is made up of our viewers and listeners and our stakeholders and those who support us. So it isn't about us even in this report. It's about you and the community and everyone that helps us do what we do. So we're just stewards at this point in time of the station. But as we've just been discussing, it's been 50 years of PBS and much longer for WKAR. And so I'm just so grateful to be here at this moment in time to mark it and reflect on it and to give back a little bit to our community who's given us so much.
Well said, Susie. And I often say, if you don't toot your own horn, no one else will. So I'm glad you're patting yourself on the back a little bit. Very, very worthwhile. And I guess I could ask everyone this: how is the whole pandemic impacting WKAR's mission?
Well, I think, our hearts, go out to folks who really have been struggling. And we know it's been difficult for so many people. And we just have been racking our brains from the beginning to think, what role can we play to make sure that we're being supportive, providing the information that's needed at this critical moment as quickly as possible and as accurately as possible. We have built up, as you mentioned, this trust over the years. And so I feel like this is a moment that we've been working toward to make sure that we can be there for the community. And so I have to admit, I was a little as we were moving into it, I really hoped that we were going to be able to meet this challenge. And I've just been so impressed with our team and frankly, with our members and our donors and our stakeholders, as I've mentioned. Everyone's come together to make sure that we use every resource and all of our skill sets and ability to put forth to make sure that we're supporting the community as much as possible. So in the first couple of weeks, we launched a new public affairs program called COVID-19 Answers and Insights to make sure that we were providing in-depth, accurate resources and information up to date. And people needed it, we still need it, but in those first few weeks and months, it was really imperative that we were bringing on experts who could kind of cut through the noise and say, this is what's happening here locally. Because as we know, with the pandemic, it changes depending on what state you're in, depending on what county you're in. And so it was really important for us to serve our local community with the most up-to-date information. So that was challenging to produce. We first and foremost wanted to make sure that our own staff and team were safe. And so we followed all of MSU's rules. MSU was at the forefront right away, making sure that faculty and students and staff were safe. And so we followed all of the guidelines that were put in place for us, but our team was still able to produce this incredible program. And that was seen mostly statewide. And so we did that. We suspended our pledge drive, our drive on radio, to make sure that we were providing as much news and information as possible. And we found alternative ways to hold our fund drive, and our donors have been coming out for us and supporting what we've been doing. So we're so grateful for that. And so we launched an at-home learning service for our families, building on the PBS Kids work that we've done, the Ready to Learn work that we've done since 1996. We were perfectly poised to be there and provide equitable access to educational programming, free and over the air, to all kids and all families. And we've been working really hard. Our education director, Robin Pizzo, has been building partnerships with others on campus and in the community to make sure that we're supporting kids and families. And we launched a daily education newsletter, and then a weekly newsletter for teachers. So we've just been really, really busy and really trying to make sure we're up for the challenge. And I've been pleased so far, but we have a long way to go, I think we all know. And so we're committed to putting every resource available. And we like to say we're here now because of the support we've gotten, in the past. And our members and donors continue to understand the importance of what we do and have continued to support it, even when it's difficult for them to do so. So I'm grateful.
And Susie, I've been very impressed with the leadership of Drew Henderson and Jamie Paisley on the radio side. What's new over there on radio?
Well, the radio news team and the classical team have been integral into our work towards supporting the community during the pandemic. So when I mentioned the TV program that we put together, but I would also say you're exactly right. Drew and Corel Vega and the news team have been outstanding in terms of being able to report up to the minute information. We launched a live blog on the coronavirus right away, and provided Spanish language updates as well for our Spanish speaking community. We just really, I have followed their lead. They know, what they need to do in order to get information out, and they have just done a phenomenal job and worked really closely with colleagues on the music side, Jamie and Jody and others, to make sure that there's a bit of a respite from this barrage of news and information. And, our classical listeners have always counted on Jamie and Jody to provide that local connection. And if Jamie were here talking with us, he would say it isn't just a respite. I mean, there's music for forever has been used to also talk about what's happening in the world and to provide, some insight and to be thought-provoking as well. And so some of our listeners, have appreciated our local hosts at thinking about, their programming schedule and how it addresses today's needs. And so it's an active, not just passive experience. It's, and that's been important. And, early on, Jamie's work was recognized in the New York Times. He was pulling together streams of classical performances that where audiences weren't able to attend. So he pulled together a listing of those, and our radio reporters have been featured heavily throughout NPR's national reporting. Abigail Sensky has been asked by NPR to participate in their politics reports and podcasts, and leading the pool feeds for candidates that are coming to the state. So it's just been impressive to see them in action, and they're so skilled at what they do, and they take, the trust that we've built over all these years extremely seriously. And I'm really proud of the efforts of everyone on the team. And that goes also for the behind the scenes folks. So there's a lot of people on air and producers and content creators, reporters, but there's also a lot of people building out those schedules. There's the business office and our membership teams, and everyone has come to, the table to say, how can I help and what can I do? And I know they're also grappling with issues at home in their personal lives and caring for family members. And so, it's just an interesting time that I feel just very honored to be leading the organization at a time like this. I'm grateful to Prabhu David for his support in the college, and for President Stanley, and for Paula Kerger's leadership at PBS. It's an honor for me to be managing WKAR right now.
Well, Susie, and it's an honor for me to be a small part of that team, as MSU Today does air on WKAR. And I could talk with you all day, but what would you like to leave listeners with about sort of as PBS, celebrates its 50th birthday, but TV and radio and online and streaming, just what would you like people to take and keep in mind as we move forward about WKAR's mission and how you serve the community?
Well, I always like to share with folks why I think we are as important as we've ever been, because occasionally people say, in a world full of media choices, there's a plethora of information and news and music, and I can get it anywhere I want, whenever I want. And so why is PBS needed today? And, I am a firm believer that PBS is needed now more than ever because of the plethora of news and information, and the trust that WKAR and PBS has built means that we aren't beholden to anyone else. We are only serving those in our local community, and as the last locally owned stations, working to extend the learning from our educational programming and convene those conversations. And, that is at the heart of our mission. And there is no one else doing that. There's no one else cutting through the noise in the way that we are with our community. And we can only do it because of the support of our community. And I personally am so grateful to live in a community like ours, where people are interested and they are engaged and they are involved and they want information, and they want cultural programming. And so it's a pleasure to serve this community, and I'm just grateful to everyone.
Well, Susie, happy birthday to PBS, and thank you for updating us on all things WKAR, and all the best to you in the future.
Thank you, Russ. Thanks for this opportunity. It's always appreciated.
That's Susie Elkins, Michigan State University's Director of Broadcasting, and Susie is the General Manager of WKAR Public Media. Of course, everything we've talked about, you can find out more at WKAR.org. And I'm Russ White. This is MSU Today.